All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I hope everybody out there is having a great day, but the updates I have for you about this war are absolutely, positively catastrophic. In fact, I'm running out of words to describe the depravity and just how horrific this moment is and how all of us are currently living through history in the worst possible way. So I have a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of updates to give you. Let's start with this right here. So as the oil prices started skyrocketing and the market started tanking, Donald Trump began panicking and trying to basically downplay how horrific the situation is. So he came out on Live Social and he said the following: short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iranian nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently. President Donald J. Trump. So he came out and said that, which of course in turn only made people panic more, only made oil prices go up more, only made the stock market crash more, because as Ron Filipkowski points out here, here's Trump on January 22nd, 2020, when the CDC confirmed the first U.S. COVID case. We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine. So this is what Trump does when he's in these situations. He lies through his teeth. Okay, now take a look at this. Breaking: Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures open over minus 1,000 points lower, now down 4,000 points since hitting 50,000 for the first time on February 5th. So as of last night, laying in bed, we're seeing this information come in that the Dow had dropped all the way down to 46,453. There was a massive crash when looking at the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and this war going completely and utterly out of control. And I can also give you this updates as well. Last night, you had Asian markets absolutely collapsing. South Korea was down 7%, Taiwan 6%, Japan 6%. I believe this also went up. Japan, I believe, hit 7% or more. We had what's called a circuit breaker where they temporarily paused trading because the floor was falling out from underneath everybody. Okay, Australia was also down 4%. Breaking: U.S. stock market futures extend losses with the S&P 500 now down $1.3 trillion on the day, as U.S. oil prices rise above $115 a barrel. Now, since this happened last night, they have come back down a little bit. But as you probably all know, and you don't need me to explain to you, that shit is going to be temporary, dog. I absolutely see the price of oil skyrocketing even more. So the S&P was down 2.3, NASDAQ down 2.7, Dow Jones down 2.4, WTI crude up 26.5%, Brent up 23%, natural gas up 9%, okay? So we should see U.S. gas prices nearing $5 a gallon soon. So this is not good. So Ron Filipkowski, again, last night pointed this out. Holy shit, crude oil futures going nuts tonight. And you can see a vertical line straight up on the price of crude doesn't seem to be good to me. The Daily Mail here says Aussie farmers claim they could run out of petrol in days amid Middle East fuel blockade, and it will hit families hard at the supermarket checkout. So understand something. This is not limited to just oil and gas. This is going to have an economic shock throughout the economy where prices for everything raise. You're also going to see the same thing when it comes to fertilizer, which means that's an input for food production, which means food prices are going to skyrocket. So your groceries are going to go up. So this has cascading effects throughout the entire economy. Britain has just 2 days of gas stored up, sparking fears of a supply crisis amid the Iran war. So as we talked about the other day, you're now giving Russia a massive gift on a silver platter, because in this moment of desperation, it's very likely that they're all going to open up to Russian oil and gas again because there is no alternative. All right, now this one here is also just a touch out of date, but I still want to give it to you so you can see the trend that we've been on here. Oil plus 21, jet fuel plus 87, liquid natural gas plus 106%, VLCC tanker rates plus 201, liquid natural gas carrier rates plus 529%, aluminum plus 20%, fertilizer plus 36%, and then naphtha plus 26%, okay? Iraq oil output plunges about 60% as Iran war blocks tankers. So you have also, I believe it was Qatar and Dubai, there were some of the Gulf Arab states said, we're shutting down production because we have so much stored up that we want to ship out, but we can't ship out, that there's nothing we could do. And by the way, when this is over, it's not just as simple as flipping a switch and then everything goes back to normal. It's a long process to get everything functioning properly. So this is, again, a worst case scenario is effectively what we're looking at here. So here we have Trump. He's on Air Force One. And there were so many moments here that make you want to bang your head against a wall because this guy clearly is in over his head. He has no idea what he's doing. He's totally incompetent. He's totally stupid on top of being sadistic and evil. But here he is asked about ground troops, and you can listen to his answer.
What are the circumstances where you send in ground troops? How are you thinking about that?
I don't even want to talk about it now. I mean, that's, I don't think it's an appropriate question. You know, I'm not going to answer it. Could there be? Possibly, for a very good reason. I mean,
think about what he's saying here. Could I send ground troops? Possibly, for a very good reason if I do it. But he's saying, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it with you. He's acting like it's some personal, private thing that affects only him. Like, bitch, we have a constitution, and if you're going to do a war, a massive war, and put boots on the ground, obviously you need to go to Congress. Obviously you need the input of the representatives of the people of America. But he's like, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. I guess you're going to find out soon enough. Like, what is this? This is insane. This man has totally lost it. He's not connected to reality.
And I would say if we ever did that, they would be so decimated that they wouldn't be able to fight at the ground level. A lot of negotiating leverage, maybe maximum, but we're not looking to settle. They'd like to settle. We're not looking to settle.
By the way, the fact that Trump is saying that, now you need to understand the exact opposite is true. There's plenty of reports that the U.S. has reached out to Iran through mediators. One was from Italy. There may have been others as well, where they're asking for a ceasefire because, as you all know, we're running out of interceptors, okay? They want to refresh and reload and regroup and get ready to do this again. And Iran is saying no. Iran is going, no, we don't want to do because we know what you're going to do. We know you're just going to reload and then come at us again. So we're trying to extract a price from you that lets you know you can't fuck with us. You can't do this again. So all the reports are the opposite. Trump's here saying, they want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. The reports are the exact opposite. He's like the worst liar in the world. Within the past week, we've covered 3 or 4 different examples where he goes up and he says something and the exact opposite of what he's saying is true. Like, they asked me, how great is this war going? I say it's a 15 out of 10. I say it's a 15 out of 10. Meanwhile, all the reports are they're going, holy shit, we didn't know that they would attack all of our military bases in the region. We didn't know they would go after U.S. intelligence officials who are in hotels in Dubai and Qatar and elsewhere with precision strikes. We didn't know that these Shahed drones were, as accurate and devastating as they are. So whatever the reality is, he flips it on his head because he is a right-wing postmodernist to a T. The truth doesn't matter. He creates his own truth and runs with it.
They're on their 3rd or 4th level of leadership. And they have leaders right now that nobody even knows who they are. They're being decimated. Now, at some point, I don't think there'll be anybody left maybe to say, we surrender, but they're being decimated.
What's interesting is to see the face of Steve Witkoff and Pete Hegseth as Trump is talking there, because clearly they're like, okay, dog, okay, sure. Even they know that it's BS. All right. Again, with this same Q&A, reporter, do you think the map of Iran looks the same after all of this is done? Listen.
And do you think the map of Iran looks the same after this is all done?
That I can't tell you. Probably not.
Probably not. So now just casually throwing out there, we're probably going to steal their territory. We're going to break up their country. We're going to steal their territory. What happened? I thought all the Iranian diaspora in the U.S. were, you're going to liberate us. You're going to give us freedom. You're going to give us liberty. Now he's saying, we're going to change the borders. We're going to steal stuff. We're going to steal land. We're going to take their natural resources. That's what we're going to... What happened? What happened? I thought we were the great liberators. I thought we were, doing something kind here, something positive here. No, you're admitting we want to remake the map. Now, by the way, as I pointed out, the ultimate goal here from Israel is to destroy Iran completely, make it a failed state, have open slave markets and warlords who control the country so Israel can expand and create a greater Israel and steal the entire Middle East. That's why Mike Huckabee literally said that the other day when Tucker asked him. He goes, look, in the Bible, Israel takes the entire Middle East. And Mike Huckabee goes, well, then they should take it all. This is where we are, y'all. We also have this one. Trump is asked about the elementary school that was bombed on day 1 of the war. And yet again, tells a bold-faced lie.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth?
This man lies like he fucking breathes. The ease with which he just lied. And I'm going to prove it in a second. We have confirmation of the opposite. But the ease with which he lies is disturbing to me in the depths of my soul, man. Look at his face as he lies.
What I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Even Secretary of War Crimes, Pete Kegsbreath, is asked, hey, is that true what he said? He goes, well, we're certainly investigating it. Even he can't bring himself to lie that shamelessly.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done. We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Oh my God. Now, as Ryan Grimm says, aside from the fact that it is now widely understood and accepted that the U.S. bombed the girls' school in Manab, the claim Iran struck it never made sense since it happened before Iran had even begun responding. Think about the extreme nature of the lie. He thinks you're an idiot. He thinks nobody is going to look into anything. Now, by the way, we get this. Dropsite says, confirmed. Footage reviewed and geolocated by Bellingcat confirms U.S. Tomahawk missiles hit the girls' primary school in southern Iran that killed 180 people, most of them children. Researcher Trevor Ball notes Israel does not possess Tomahawk missiles. The United States does. So, in other words, the missile that was used for this strike is literally a missile that only the United States of America has. And you can actually see it here. Watch. See that? They actually do a freeze frame where you can see that right there? That's a Tomahawk missile. They know it's a Tomahawk missile. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This was a U.S. strike that killed all of these innocent, precious little kids. Day one of the war. Day one of the war. Absolutely disgusting. Now, they had the nerve to say, well, we don't attack civilians. We don't attack civilians. Keep that in mind as we go through the rest of these updates I have for you, because that is, an astonishing lie. All right. Trump also at this event, we're talking to leaders from Latin America, okay? And he actually utters these words. Listen.
The savages who murder and rape with impunity must be permanently removed from society. We must not allow our criminal justice systems to be corrupted so that they protect these criminals and animals at the expense of your people.
The savages who rape with impunity must be permanently removed from society. I agree. It sounds like you're talking about the Epstein class, your best buddies. That's what it sounds like to me. It is incredible he has the nerve to utter those words. It's like he's trolling all of us when he says that. All right, Al Jazeera English had a report the other day breaking down what's going on in this war. Listen to this. This is all super important.
7 days ago, Israeli and U.S. forces struck without warning, beginning their relentless bombing campaign in Iran. Washington claims to be on the side of the Iranian people. But civilians were among the first casualties of the war. A huge bomb struck a girls' school in the southern city of Manab. It was the middle of the day and class was in session. The bodies of more than 165 children and staff members were pulled from the rubble. The attack sparked outrage in Iran and elsewhere, with the government accusing the US and Israel of deliberately targeting civilians. Washington denies this and says it's investigating what happened.
Look carefully at these ruins. This is a school that has been bombed with the missiles of the Zionist regime. People, look, this is a school, not a military site for anyone to claim it was a military area.
More than 1,300 Iranians have been killed since the war began. The Iranian government says more than 30% of those killed are children, and nearly 200 of those killed have been women. According to UNICEF, at least 20 schools and 10 hospitals have been bombed across Iran.
At least 20 schools and 10 hospitals, according to UNICEF. At what point does this country look in the mirror and go, hey, maybe we're doing that on purpose? In fact, maybe that's Occam's razor and the duh answer as to what our so-called strategy is in the region. Maybe it is shock and awe and blitzkrieg and terrorism and attacking innocent people on purpose. That's exactly what it is. And don't ever let anybody gaslight you out of believing that fact. The idea that we're any different or any better compared to any other empire throughout history, no, we are not.
Civilian facilities are being hit constantly. The Azadi Sports Complex, one of Tehran's biggest stadiums, is now nothing more than a ruin. Iran says a separate attack on another sports center killed 18 boys and girls as they were playing volleyball. Hospitals are routinely overwhelmed as the wounded are brought in for urgent care. As the US and Israel strike thousands of targets across the country, the next emergency could happen anytime or anywhere. US President Donald Trump says only Iran's unconditional surrender will end the war. But on the ground, the conflict is not simply measured by time. It's being weighed by the growing number of civilian deaths.
What does unconditional surrender even mean? Because they've now decentralized their fighting forces, so you have independent decisions being made by people at a lower level. Even if you make a deal, a ceasefire, a peace agreement, one might agree to it, others might not. In fact, Pezeshkian, the president, said, oh, we'll stop attacking the Gulf Arab countries if they stop attacking us. And then that was immediately overruled by other people within Iran. That's the president of Iran saying something and others going, yeah, we're not going to abide by that. Other members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And now, by the way, we have a new Grand Ayatollah, and it's Ayatollah Khamenei's son. So Ayatollah Khamenei was replaced by Ayatollah Khamenei, and this Ayatollah Khamenei is actually way more hardline than his dad. By the way, the U.S. and Israel also just murdered his mom, his dad, his wife, his kids, and I believe there's like nobody left in his immediate family. Gee, I wonder if he's going to be interested in peace. I wonder if he's going to be interested in de-escalating the situation after everything he ever loved and cared about was just blown to smithereens by the axis of Epstein. That's a real hard one to figure out, isn't it? Now I gotta give you this. So Israel attacked these massive oil refineries, okay? I believe 30 of them, it's being reported, 30 of them in Iran. And when I say the pictures and the videos coming out of here are absolutely positively apocalyptic, I mean it. Take a look at this video. This is like something straight out of hell. My God, look at that. Oh. Somebody posted like me drinking out of a paper straw to save the environment, and then here's what the government is doing. Jesus Christ, bro. Jesus Christ. Tehran's roads literally burned from below after U.S.-Israeli strikes. So what happened was fuel seeped into not just the sewers, but this like irrigation system that they have there that gives water to the trees and stuff, and it like lines the side of the roads, and then the roads like lit up with this fire along the sides of them. And again, this looks like something straight out of a movie or straight out of hell. Watch this. Look at this. That's real. What you're witnessing here is real. I know it seems like it's something out of a video game or it's fake. This is real. This actually happened. Jesus Christ, man. Drop site says 6,668 civilian sites hit by the U.S. and Israel across Iran since the start of the regime change war. It's been a week. It's been a week, and we have over 6,000 civilian sites that have been hit. Iran's ambassador to the UN says 1,332 civilians have been killed and thousands injured since the war began. 5,535 homes, like residential units, have been hit. Over 1,000 businesses have been hit. 65 schools damaged or destroyed. 14 medical facilities, hospitals, and clinics affected. Red Crescent sites, 13 humanitarian facilities hit as well. Again, at some point you have to say, maybe this is the point. Now, by the way, so after you had this refinery hit, okay, then this is like a nightmare scenario from an environmental perspective and a health perspective, and this is going to have long-term damage. So Dropsite News reports, black rain and nuclear winter effect reported in Tehran after Israeli strikes on oil facilities. Israeli strikes on oil depots around Tehran have released massive quantities of toxic hydrocarbons, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxides. Mixed with rainwater, these chemicals are causing highly acidic precipitation that can cause skin burns and severe lung damage upon contact, according to Iranian authorities. Dense plumes of black smoke from the Shahran and other refineries have blotted out the sun, plunging parts of the city into darkness and creating a nuclear winter effect, the New York Times reported. Authorities warn that these noxious fumes cause acute respiratory distress and eye irritation. Oil-saturated rainwater has blanketed the city, leaving rooftops, balconies, and streets covered in a thick, murky black liquid and oily soot. This contamination poses a long-term risk of heavy metals like nickel and vanadium leaching into the soil and local water systems. Environmental groups warn the pollution threatens migratory birds crossing the Persian Gulf. The black rain and smoke plumes can cause internal organ damage and destroy the insulating properties of bird feathers, leading to hypothermia and death. The Iranian Red Crescent Society warned of the dangers of the rain, advising residents to protect themselves and to cover exposed food from oily soot particles. Officials said the rain is highly corrosive and could potentially damage civilian structures. So this is daytime in Iran, and I need you guys to take a look at what this looks like. Watch this. Look at that. The sky, for those of you just listening to the podcast audio style, the sky is just black. Like the sky is just black, and it's raining oil. It's quite literally raining oil. So let me just say, if you're listening to this in Iran, or you have family in Iran, tell them, stay the fuck out of this so-called rainwater. It's basically like poison or like a toxic chemical being dumped on you from the sky. okay? Get out of Dodge, get as far away from this stuff as you possibly can. If you're inside, stay inside, close all the windows. I mean, this is crazy. So here we have a CNN reporter who's there, and he says it's literally raining oil in Tehran this morning, and he's going to show you what this looks like.
This is what Tehran is waking up to this morning. The sky above the city is covered in very thick black clouds. You can see that everywhere. That's the west of the city over there, and this is the north of the city. Normally, if you look to that direction, you could actually see the Alborz Mountains, but now all of that is also covered in clouds. That comes after major airstrikes in the south and the west of the city happened last night, where oil installations were hit, oil storage facilities. Apparently also a refinery might have been hit as well. And now you can see this morning that the sky is still very dark. We saw thick black plumes of smoke in the sky yesterday. There were massive fires in the south of the city, but I want to show you something else because it's also raining, but you can see that the rain water is actually black, also saturated, it appears, with oil. And then if we look over there, you can see that the water that's running down here also is black. So that's what's coming down this morning, this sort of oil-filled rain that we have right now.
So, by the way, this sort of thing leads to what we call Gulf War syndrome, right? Where everybody came back from the original Gulf War and they got very sick in a short amount of time. And it's because this exact same thing happened. You had these, oil refineries that were blown up, and then stuff like this would happen. Or you have the burn pits as well, where you're breathing in those toxic fumes. Get out of there, man. If you're anywhere near there, get out of there. All right, Al Jazeera English says, breaking. Ali Larijani, the head of Iran's National Security Council, says a number of U.S. soldiers have been captured since the start of hostilities 1 week ago. So the U.S. government is not admitting this. U.S. media is not talking about this, but understand there's a lot of speculation around this. In fact, Marco Rubio made some comment that was cryptic about how, Iran they're like the worst when it comes to capturing people. So just beware. We're being lied to about multiple aspects of this war. I believe this is one of them. I believe they're lying about the actual death toll, the number of U.S. soldiers who are dead. They're lying about that, okay? And I also think they're lying about this. I think that they've captured Americans. All right. Now, speaking of dead U.S. soldiers, more U.S. soldier deaths that CENTCOM is being silent about. An American soldier, U.S. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kevin Melendez, has died in Saudi Arabia, allegedly in a non-hostile incident. Like Iran's top security official, Ali Larijani, had said, the U.S. is gradually announcing U.S. soldier deaths due to accidents. So this is what they're doing. Since you cannot trust a single thing the Trump regime says, because they are just the most absurd liars of all time, what they're doing is they're slow rolling us, and so they're gradually increasing the number of deaths. And also, they're literally saying like, oh yeah, that person died, but it wasn't because of the war. They had like, a medical incident or something. I'm not kidding. This is what they're doing. They're saying, oh no, it was a separate medical incident. Really? What kind of medical incident? This guy's young. This guy's like in his 20s. What are you talking about? Okay, so this is one. We got another one here. It's happening. The U.S. started to quietly announce killings of its soldiers due to health problems. The first is a major officer from the 42nd Infantry Division in the U.S. Army National Guard who died due to medical problems at a U.S. base in Kuwait. Do you believe how horrific they are at lying? It's absolutely astonishing. So I believe the number right now, as I talk to you, that they've admitted is that 8 U.S. soldiers are dead. But again, I think it's way more than that. We have the Iranian government is saying there's over 540 or so, and this is as of like 2 or 3 days ago, 540 or so who are dead or injured. Okay, that's what they're saying. They're not reporting anything near that number here in the U.S. and here in U.S. media. Nothing even close to it, bro. So, look, the number's probably somewhere in the middle there, but we'll learn with time. But they're definitely lying through their teeth about where we're at right now. Okay, so Trump sparked major outrage on social media after wearing a baseball cap during the dignified transfer of 6 U.S. soldiers killed in the Iran war. So this was before we learned that there were 2 more. Like I said, they're probably lying about it. But wearing a baseball, this is like etiquette, decorum 101. Got the president of the United States wearing a fucking baseball hat, doing that goofy thing with his hands. Is he doing his stupid fucking double jack-off Trump dance here? Like, what the fuck is happening in this picture? So he's wearing the hat. Everybody uniformly across the board was like, excuse me? What the fuck is this? What are you doing? Now, by the way, as Cuckturd points out, Trump used Air Force One and a 50-car motorcade to attend the undignified transfer. Meanwhile, he stacked our dead heroes in Amazon delivery vans. No hearses, no separate vehicles, no send-off, nothing. What the fuck is this? This is like when he has an event at the White House and like every time he gets McDonald's for them, right? Like at some point you just gotta call a spade here and say these are the most classless fucking people on the planet. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is how you treat U.S. soldiers? Oh my God, man. All right, more. Water desalination strikes. This is super important. So there was a massive escalation done by the Axis of Epstein against Iran, where the U.S. struck Iranian water desalination sites, leaving 30 villages without water, okay? Iran called this, quote, a dangerous move with grave consequences. Then minutes ago, Bahrain announced that Iran struck their water desalination facilities. This is being described as the worst case scenario. Why? Because most of the Gulf countries cannot survive without desalinated water, okay? So the desalination plants, they give Kuwait 90% of their drinking water, Oman 86% of their drinking water, and Saudi Arabia 70% of their drinking water, and the UAE 42% of their drinking water. Whereas in Iran, it's like it's about 10% or less than 10% of their drinking water comes from these desalination plants. Why the Axis of Epstein would attack them is fucking beyond me. They're so depraved. They're so stupid. Like I said, they're not playing chess or checkers. They're playing with their feces in the corner, right? They're so dumb that they did this. Now you open up the door for Iran to do it back to the Gulf Arab countries, and it's way more impactful if you do it to the Gulf Arab countries because they rely on these plants more than Iran does. Absolutely unbelievable, man. Dumbest regime in history, and it's not even close. Switzerland says U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran a violation of international law. So as Philip says here, when your crimes are so bad, even Switzerland stops being neutral. They're like the neutral people. All they know is neutrality. And here they're like, oh no, we're not. No, this is horrible. This is bad. This is a violation of international law. We are not with the Axis of Epstein. That's what they're saying. All right, Sprinter Press says, the Trump administration is starting to lean towards the idea of seizing Karg Island in the Persian Gulf, which houses Iran's largest oil terminal, responsible for 90% of its oil exports. Defense experts believe that seizing Karg Island or destroying the oil terminal on it would shut down Iran's ability to pay its troops, according to the Washington Post. However, the publication notes that due to the location of the island deep in the Persian Gulf, any amphibious operations by the U.S. against it would mean that American military ships and landing craft would be subject to attacks from Iranian drones and anti-ship missiles, not only during landing attempts, but also during their journey from the Strait of Hormuz to the island itself. It is noted that the Iraqi Air Force bombed Karg Island during the Iran-Iraq War, destroying the oil facilities there, and this did not cause any riots among Iranian troops or the bankruptcy that U.S. defense experts anticipate in the event of such an operation. So the idea that, oh, the Iranian people will have an uprising or the Iranian military will have an uprising if A, B, and C happen, that's always been bullshit. They thought that the Iranian people would be out in the streets when the Grand Ayatollah was killed in order to overthrow the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And literally the opposite happened. People came out in support of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, because that's kind of what happens when you see your government being bombed by an outsider force, right? When you have the Israel and the U.S., the Axis of Epstein, people who don't give a fuck about you at all, and like they do something against your country, all of a sudden people fall in line and you have the rally around the flag effect. Okay, you're making them more nationalistic by the second. And so this cockamamie plan would absolutely fail, which is why there's a decent chance they might actually agree to do it. All right, so we have this from Benjamin Netanyahu, which should scare absolutely everybody. Benjamin Netanyahu announces he has a major surprise for Iran that will completely destabilize the country. Netanyahu is asking Iranians to lay down their weapons and surrender or face death. Netanyahu says, quote, the moment of truth is approaching, and he will free Iran and make Iran and Israel allies. The moment of truth is approaching? All right, well, that's terrifying. Now, was this him alluding to the 30 refineries that were hit, or is it something even more than that? Well, I also have this horrifically terrifying news to share with you. The USA sent their doomsday plane, E-6B Mercury, to the Middle East. That's right. You also have the Daily Mail reporting this as well. I believe Newsweek had a thing on it as well. I haven't seen this very widespread, so I wouldn't say it's completely confirmed yet, but there's a lot of speculation around the fact that they may be now moving the doomsday plane. I told you, man, I'm absolutely terrified of the Trump regime nuking Iran. I'm genuinely terrified of that. This is a guy who's so stupid that he floated in his first term potentially nuking a hurricane to try to stop it in its tracks. I don't know why he thought that would impact it, but he thought it would impact it. He said, well, why not nuke it? He's had this morbid fascination with nukes. And he's the type of guy who he wants to go down as an historical figure. And I don't think he cares how, right? He very famously had like Hitler's Mein Kampf next to his bed and he would read it all the time. This is a guy who's got like the mentality of a school shooter. I don't care how I go down in history. I want to go down in history. I think he wants to be a president to expand the footprint of the United States of America and or use nuclear weapons. So this terrifies me to no end. All right, massive news. Grand Ayatollah Sayyid al-Sistani, the most powerful Shia religious leader in Iraq and one of the most influential for Shias worldwide, followed by tens of millions, issued a fatwa that is now a religious duty to mobilize and defend the Islamic Republic of Iran. So he called for solidarity in Iran, so solidarity with Iran, and he called for Iranians to rise up to defend their Islamic government. Okay, so yet again, you're having these reverberating blowback effects that, of course, the idiots in the White House did not realize would happen or even care about, okay? So now often people talk about Israel and they do what's called the one bad man theory of history. Even Bernie Sanders does this, where he says, the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu, and then he attacks what Israel is doing, but under the auspices of it's Benjamin Netanyahu, he's the worst of the worst, he's the head of the snake, and if we get rid of him, things will improve. Well, I got bad news for everybody. No, it won't, because here's your so-called opposition, okay? Yair Lapid says, Israel must destroy all of Iran's oil fields and energy industry on Karg Island. That is what will cripple Iran's economy and topple the regime. This war must end when the regime in Iran has fallen. The nuclear facilities have been destroyed. All of the ballistic missile industry has been destroyed, and Hezbollah has been destroyed in Lebanon. So in other words, no fucking daylight between Netanyahu and this guy. There is no left. You know who the left is in Israel? Those 20 protesters who went out there and got immediately shut down and roughed up by the IDF and locked up. The guy who organized it got locked up, and they shut down all protest and all free speech in the country. Those 20 people are the left in Israel, okay? It's an apartheid ethno-state. That's what it is. It's an expansionist settler colony. We see who they are, we see what they're doing, and this guy would be no fucking better, and I need you to remember that, because we need to cut off all money and all weapons to this depraved genocidal regime. More. Police in Oslo, Norway have now confirmed that the U.S. Embassy was targeted earlier tonight by an explosive device, with the device detonating around 1 a.m. outside the consular entrance to the embassy, resulting in minor injuries and damage, according to a statement provided by NRK by Oslo Police Chief Michael Delmer. Okay, so we're starting to see stuff like this, and I think if anything, it's going to speed up, right? I'm also afraid of a massive false flag attack to try to get the U.S. sentiment to be more pro-war with Iran. Some big false flag attack they blame on Iran. I'm afraid of that. I'm also afraid of genuine retribution and revenge and stuff like this happening more often. All right, Brian Krasenstein says, this is from a few days back now, the 90-story 23 Marina Tower in Dubai has been hit by an Iranian drone, and here you can see the aftermath of it. Look at this. So they'll zoom in, see all the smoke billowing out of there? So what's happening here is these Gulf Arab countries that have really portrayed themselves as stable and a playground for the top 1%, like luxury destinations for the Epstein class, now that facade is shattered and nobody's going to want to be there. In fact, I just saw this horrific story. They have all these influencers that were living in these Gulf Arab countries, and not only did they flee immediately, but they also left behind their pets, because these are the fucking dregs of society. Okay, meanwhile, compare that with Palestinian families and how even during a genocide, they made sure to bring their cats along with them to keep their cats safe. Okay, and the influencers are gone, and they said, fuck our pets. We don't care about our pets at all. All right, the Iranian foreign minister just admitted on Meet the Press that Russia is helping them in this war against the United States. So listen to what he says here.
Are you receiving any help from Russia?
Well, we have a strategic partnership with Russia.
So that's a yes?
And, a military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not something new. It's not a secret. It has been in the past, and it's still there and will continue in the future.
Is Russia helping you locate U.S. forces? I just want to be very clear here.
Well, I don't have exact military information. As far as I know, we have a very good partnership with Russia.
Okay. So as Brian Krasenstein says here, meanwhile, Trump just helped Russia by allowing India to import Russian oil. In other words, Trump is helping those who are helping Iran and thus helping the people he's fighting in a war. Again, the incompetence isn't a strong enough word. We need a word with more bite and more sting than that. Okay, this is crazy from the New York Times. U.S. has determined that Iran could retrieve the highly enriched uranium stored at Isfahan. There is now an active debate over whether to deploy U.S. troops to seize the uranium. What? Now, by the way, what happened? I thought you guys told us we absolutely and totally destroyed it. They can't build a nuke. Anybody who says otherwise is doing fake news. And now here we get this. Now, by the way, what are we even talking about here? That's some Hollywood-ass shit. Really, you're going to send people to go to Isfahan and what? Drill through the fucking rock and get under there and like safely remove whatever nuclear material is in there. This is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's not going to fucking happen. But to me, what this really sounds more like is they're trying to give further justification and rationalization as to why the war has to continue, because they go, oh, they can get the nuclear material, so we need to keep fighting the war to prevent them from getting that nuclear material or something. Like, all of this is just so chaotic and so insane and so extreme, and so much of it sounds fake. But no, the axis of Epstein truly is in the midst of destroying the world, and everything is spiraling out of control. All right, reports claim that Iranian strikes have caused major power outages in Tel Aviv, with power plants, energy facilities, and oil refineries reportedly hit. Here we go. So you can see there, massive... massive bombing, massive power outage. Wow. We have this one as well. A missile struck Tel Aviv during a live NBC broadcast. Now, they've been trying to hide all this stuff, and they're censoring as much as they possibly can, the Israeli government is, about the damage that's being done against them. But as you'll see here, when you're live, some of this stuff slips through. Watch this.
And the Israelis, I think that's what the calculation now is. Regime preservation. Could you get a more pragmatic figure presiding over this regime? Sure.
Aaron, I just want to break in for a moment, because we're looking at live pictures in the air over Tel Aviv. And obviously, as many people know, or maybe don't know, there is an Iron Dome that Israel uses as its missile defense system. And we're seeing it working now. But in some places and instances, it does not work. And I believe this is one missile feasibly that has broken through the Iron Dome.
So every little bit and piece of information that we get is sort of devastating. Is sort of devastating for Israel and for Tel Aviv. And again, I don't think the U.S. or Israel, the axis of Epstein, I don't think they were ready for just how effective a fighting force Iran was. All right, horrific night in the West Bank. So as all this other stuff is going on, Israeli settlers are carrying out pogroms against Palestinian villages, including the Christian village of Taibeh. They have set fire to Palestinian homes in the village of Abu Falah and are shooting at civilians. So far, 6 people have been injured, with reports that 3 are in critical condition. So as the world is looking at what's happening in Iran, okay, as the world is looking at what Israel is also doing in Lebanon with an invasion there as well, they kicked 517,000 people out of their homes in South Lebanon, and they're now stealing that territory. They think nobody's paying attention, nobody's looking at the West Bank, and they're engaging in pogroms, which is something that happens all too regularly in the West Bank against Palestinians. So you can hear the screams and you can see the settlers marching in. Terrifying stuff here. Israel military buildup near the border with Lebanon from Al Jazeera English. So even though they've already done bombing, they've already evacuated large parts of it, it looks like they're doing a full-on invasion, and they're going to try to steal that territory. Because as you know, guys, we've talked about this quite a bit. They're trying to create a greater Israel. That's what they're trying to do. They want more land. They want more territory. Lebensraum, some might say. Living room, right? So you can see here, this is the military buildup on the border. Absolutely catastrophic. And they feel like we're just going to go for all of it. With Trump in there, Trump's a cuck to Israel. He'll let them do whatever they want. So we're just going to go for all of it. All right, more. At least 394 people, including 83 children, killed in Israeli attacks on Lebanon, the health ministry says. So again, as eyes are on Iran, also look at Lebanon as well, because they are just crusading through there and pillaging and plundering and murdering. And we even have this story. Israeli forces disguised themselves as Lebanese soldiers and killed at least 41 people, and all to search for the bones of an Israeli pilot who went missing in the 1980s. They desecrated a graveyard. A local resident from the Lebanese town of Nabi Cheat pointed at the empty grave, saying they thought he was there, but there was nothing. And so you can see here, this is what they did. This is what they did. An Israeli soldier went missing in 1986. They went in there and dug up an entire fucking graveyard, posed as Lebanese soldiers, killed a bunch of people, and dug up the entire fucking grave and found nothing. This is insanity. This is absolutely... They're completely unhinged. They're completely and utterly out of control. All right, I have to show you this. I don't know if I've showed this yet on air before, but this has been haunting me to no end. This is the last image of Mikhail Mirdaragi, a third-grade Iranian student who was murdered in the U.S.-Israeli strike on his elementary school in Minab, Iran. This is him waving his last farewell to his mother. This precious, adorable child was murdered. Look at how innocent he is. Look at how innocent this little kid is. Look at the glasses. Look at the thing that goes, around the back of your head to keep your glasses on your head. Look at the thermos. As somebody said online, like, this kid was somebody's world, man. Somebody lived for this kid, was their everything. And now he's dead because the United States bombed an elementary school. In a functioning country, Trump would immediately be impeached, removed, indicted, convicted, arrested, locked up over this crime against humanity. Not only Trump, but Secretary of War Crimes Pete Kegsbreath, anybody and everybody who was involved would immediately be locked up in a world that made sense and in a world where the law actually fucking mattered. These are criminals. I will not forget this. You shouldn't forget this. Any Democrat who takes office should never forget this. There needs to be justice for what happened here. The law is supposed to be blind. Nobody's supposed to be above the law. This kid fucking mattered. Let's remember that, and let's act accordingly. Breaking, Iran has updated its target bank following overnight U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iranian infrastructure, a source told the IRGC-linked Fars News, saying Tehran will no longer limit itself to military targets and may also target key U.S. assets and interests across the region. So again, understand, the reason for this is because the axis of Epstein was going after all of their oil refineries, was making it so that now an entire city of 10 million people are poisoned from the toxic rain that they created by bombing the oil refineries. Their desalination plants got hit first. So the axis of Epstein escalates, and they go, all right, well, now if it's fair game, it's fair game. So this is all on Donald Trump. This is all on Benjamin Netanyahu, okay? Now, at the same time, all hell is breaking loose, and that's all happening. What's Trump doing? I'm not kidding, bro. He was golfing. He was golfing in fucking Florida as war was raging across the Middle East, an illegal and offensive war, the Jeffrey Epstein war that he started, even though Iran had agreed to his strictest terms on enriched uranium. They agreed, and hours later, they were bombed. Watch this, look. Let's see, they'll find him. There he is right there. You see him? You see him? Here he is walking in. Now, by the way, there's also video here. I think he's signing something. He's walking here. There's also video when he walks into the little restaurant area. He walks in, and he's got people clapping for him. They stand up, and they clap, and they go, USA, USA, USA. All the while, fucking American soldiers are getting murdered. They're lying about the number of them getting murdered. They're attacking elementary schools. The entire region is blowing up. Oil prices are skyrocketing. The economy is imploding. He's playing golf and making people in the restaurant fucking clap for him and cheer for him like he's a fucking Make-A-Wish kid. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Donald Trump says decision on when to end the war with Iran will be a mutual one that he'll make together with Benjamin Netanyahu. Are you fucking kidding me? Everybody is correctly saying you're a cuck. Everybody is correctly saying you're beta. Everybody's correctly saying that Iran played you like a motherfucking fiddle and dog-walked you into World War III. And this is what you say? We're going to make a decision with Netanyahu. We didn't elect him, motherfucker. Nobody elected him. By the way, also maybe the case, nobody elected you, but I digress. That's a longer conversation for a different day. Go check out the Greg Palast interview we did. But what the fuck are you talking about here? You're admitting he's the boss. Oh, we'll make a group decision. Jesus fucking Christ, that's terrifying. Holy shit, man. Holy shit. All right. On the same topic here, Hegseth. Listen to what he said. This is a massive Freudian slip here that really gives the game away.
To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination.
Your mission, he says, your mission is being carried out awesomely. Like he just said the quiet part out loud again. Oh my God, these people, man. So at the same time, all this is going on, even Fox News is panicking. They are panicking. They're over here saying, holy shit, these drones are doing more damage than we thought. We're not making our stuff fast enough. Listen to this.
What do you think is the discussion between these, our highest end defense companies and the president this afternoon? What could be done quickly if needs to be?
Well, I think the discussion is how do we plus up our counter drone defenses to, continue to strike down these drones, because clearly some of them are getting through, obviously more than we wanted to. We're seeing more drones penetrate our defenses than I think expected. We should be really honest with ourselves about that. That brings up, frankly, a larger issue that I've been talking about on this network for years. We have our critical installations around the world have been vulnerable. There are people in some of our own government offices who have failed the American people in purchasing failed equipment. That's why we're seeing some of these Shahed drones get through. Even one enemy drone getting through our defenses and striking a U.S. embassy overseas is unacceptable. And Mark, that's something, a cheap $20,000 Shahed forcing us to burn multi-million-dollar interceptors. starting fires currently at oil facilities and U.S. embassies. That's unsustainable math. Marco Rubio said the other day we only make 6 to 7 interceptors per month at the tune of $1 million apiece. That doesn't make sense. He probably doesn't know that there are probably parts of the government acquisition cycle that are still a mess. I mean, I don't know who's in charge of the Department of War's procurement over the last few years to put counter drone systems, but the reality is that we're seeing right now there are gaps, and so we need to buy more systems in the U.S. and start plussing up our forces. And I hope that there's a real discussion at the White House right now about doing that.
What people are now learning is that our military-industrial complex is all a scam. It's also that the Epstein class can loot and pillage and steal, right? We talk about it all the time, but they can't account for 63% of their money. The Pentagon can't account for 63% of their money. Okay, they failed 8 audits in a row. Where do you think that money's going? It's going to these fucking defense contractors who steal it and buy, and the CEOs buy fucking yachts. Okay, that's what we're looking at here. So now we're in an actual war, and they go, oh shit, like our interceptors are really expensive. We don't make that many of them. They don't fucking work that well. Yeah, because it's become nothing but a giant fucking grab bag of corruption. They're looting, they're pillaging, they're plundering, they're robbing the U.S. taxpayer. Of course, because the Epstein class, all they give a shit about is themselves, their own power, their own greed. These are people who rape kids on an island with Jeffrey Epstein, right? You think these people give a shit about anything but themselves? Of course they don't. They're fucking building doomsday bunkers, by the way, right now. In case you were wondering, oh, maybe this isn't as bad as it seems. My ass cheeks, it's as bad as it seems. It's worse than it seems. So even on the main propaganda network for the regime, they're going, I don't know, man, this doesn't seem to be going that well. Now, also in the Iraqi parliament right now, they are chanting death to America in support of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So death to America and death to Israel. I believe they also called us the Great Satan. So lit the region on fire. And for fucking what? Jesus. All right, Trump also randomly taking shots at the United Kingdom. He said, the United Kingdom, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, is finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's okay, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer. But we will remember, we don't need people that join wars after we've already won. President Donald J. Trump. So again, making it so that by the end of this, we will have literally no allies left. Everybody will run into the loving arms of China, and they'll look at us like the psychos we are. As Murtaza Hussein says here, Russian geopolitical fortunes have somehow transformed overnight. Not only are they getting sanctions waivers to sell oil, they will be doing so at inflated prices while all of Asia is desperate. Okay, Wajahat Ali says, congrats, MAGA. Your dumbass daddy is surrounded by reeks who are going to lead us into World War III. And he's citing this here from Politico. In a new interview with ABC News Sunday, Trump gives a notable answer when asked about the pushback to his new war from various corners of his base. Quote, it's more popular than ever, he claimed. It's a very MAGA thing what we're doing. A very, very MAGA thing, he added. I'm at the highest point I've ever been with MAGA. This is like a classic example of either he's just completely and utterly losing his mind and the dementia is getting worse and the Alzheimer's is getting worse, right? That's a possibility. Or he literally is surrounded by idiots like fucking Stephen Miller and Netanyahu and Pete Kegsbreath, the Secretary of War Crimes, and Marco Rubio, all these fucking psychotic, imperialist, bloodthirsty warmongers. And they're like curating everything and only showing him like, see, everybody loves this, sir. Look at this. Everybody loves this. Look, you're 90% support with the MAGA base. And he's looking at it like, oh, this is wonderful. This is awesome. Everybody loves this. Meanwhile, the war is polling at like 30-something%, 32, 35. I saw one as low as 27. Right? It's only going to go one direction down. I mean, we're talking about the war in Afghanistan was 92% popular at the beginning. The war in Iraq was 72%. This one started at motherfucking 34. Okay? And so it genuinely seems like he's losing his mind and he's surrounded by liars and snakes and charlatans and con men and cretins who are just like, let's just fucking lie to him. And here he is regurgitating like, everything's great. Everything's actually awesome, by the way. It's really incredible. All right, we also have this from Mehdi Hassan. So this guy, Ahmed Batebi, is Iranian diaspora. I believe he went to the UN and argued to like do regime change in Iran. And Mehdi says here, this guy went to the UN at the invitation of the Trump administration to make the case against the Iranian government. Now he, like so many other Iranian diaspora hawks, seem to be having buyer's remorse on this war. Useful idiots. So this guy said, Donald Trump targeting Iran's civilian infrastructure that endangers the lives, health, and daily survival of ordinary people is nothing less than a war against the people of Iran. Such acts are indefensible in principle and deserve unequivocal condemnation. Yes, but what did you learn, you idiots? We warned you. We told you that this guy, you think he gives a fuck? He doesn't even give a fuck about the people of the United States of America. You think he cares about the people of Iran? He's looting and pillaging the treasury here. He's robbing all the oil from Venezuela and putting it in a personal bank account. He's grifting as we fucking speak. He's stealing $10 billion from the American taxpayer for his Board of Peace thing, which is just a slush fund where, again, he's robbing people. He stole from his own supporters with his fucking crypto scam 2 days before his inauguration. You think he gave a fuck about anybody in Iran? No, he doesn't care. He's a fucking warmonger. He's just trying to get his name in the history books. He thought it'd be a quick in and out thing like Venezuela and everything will be great and they'll be singing my praises. And, you know, the guy, he's a fucking idiot and he's a fucking warmonger and he doesn't give a fuck about innocent civilians. Oh my God. It's so embarrassing. So all the Iranian diaspora people hold this fat fucking L for pretending for even a second that this guy somehow, who's a con man in every aspect of his life, somehow he was going to be like doing all the things properly and correct by the Iranian people in an illegal war of aggression? Oh my God, man. Yeah, like he's bombing your family members. What did you learn? What did you fucking learn? All right, then we also have huge protests that are now popping up all over the place. Here's one in London. So huge anti-war protest there. We also have a big anti-war protest in New York City as well. Take a look. Now, by the way, the Daily Mail is trying to make this sound like it's a nefarious anti-war protest that's funded by big money interests. Like, I'm not kidding. They had some, like, scaremongering headline about how foreign money is infiltrating and making it so people are doing this anti-war protest. Like, they're trying to pretend like there is no actual grassroots sentiment that's anti-war. Meanwhile, nothing could be further from the truth. This is the most grassroots of all grassroots shit I've ever seen in my fucking life. But they're trying to, like, that's the propaganda they're doing. They're trying to flip it and pretend like it's obviously nefarious outsiders who are pretending like this war is unpopular. No, bitch, read a poll. Read a poll. Look at your psychotic president and what he's doing. So we love that there's big protests. I think the protests are only going to get bigger and this war is only going to get more unpopular. But I'm not kidding when I say we are either flirting with World War III or we're already in World War III. And people need to wake up to that notion and realize it's now or never. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. As much public pressure as humanly possible needs to be put on the regime because we're already what? Thousands of war crimes deep here. And every second this thing goes on is a crime against humanity.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.